Hello! We're back to give you a recap of what happened on the Mania 7K World Cup 2025 Semifinals weekend. The weekend gave us exciting matches, all with the aim to determine the 6 teams that will play in the finals week. So without further ado, let's get started! Indonesia vs Russian Federation was a tale best told in 2 parts. Indonesia's picks, all LNs beside Hybrid 3 instead of the banned LN1, saw them best their opponents by at least half a percentage point of accuracy, which made for comfortable wins. Notable highlights from those charts include Ontabekasi slamming down a 987,000 score on LN4, second only to YZ1155's 988,000, as well as Timibuka correctly predicting the Hybrid 3 pick from the lobby chat. The Russians picked Rise charts exclusively. First of them, Rise 2 was dead ever for the first quarter, but as soon as Karay started dropping accuracy, Indonesia got a hold of a small 3,000 lead. Rafko found a very unfortunate miss right before the slow section, and Ontabekasi missed halfway in. But the team from Southeast Asia was still brute forcing their way to the lead by accuracy alone. With a third of the map left to go, both Indonesian players found a clean miss each, and Karay's 3 just did enough to still keep them in the lead. In the end, Indonesia won Rise 2 by 2,000 points despite Timibuka's FC and Rafko's less clean miss near the end. Rise 6 saw Azriel struggling with the middle section of the map, and for a brief moment the Russians were ahead by 12,000 until Karay's chain miss brought it down to 5,000 despite Rafko's eventual trade. Karay's late drop had everyone hold their breath as Russian Federation won their only point of the match by 303 points. Russia's Protect Rise 4 was surprisingly the least close of their picks as it followed more of the LN story, with Indonesia being firmly ahead on AC and combo. The only small scare came at the end when both Southeast Asian players dropped their combo and their lead shrank from over 34,000 to 26,000. When the dust settled, Indonesia emerged victorious in the match with a score of 6-1 to face either Malaysia or Chile on Sunday.
With a few hours to spare, a semi-final staff show match happened, funnily named BLOCKO and Big MAXUS, with Ruby, Kobe, Surfchu85, Yukina Meng, yours truly, GS Hina, and Watch01 on the red team, and Oct4, U1D, Chompop, Yi, Maple Syrup, and Lulu M on the blue side. The match was set at a best of 13 4v4 format, ensuring that all players had the opportunity to play. Without any bans, the match started off with LN1 and Big MAXUS winning the map at 17,088 points. The same happened with Rise 5 for their opponent. A silly decision to put random on Hybrid 2 had everyone contemplating about adding that mod in a technical hybrid chart, but the big score lead of 163,887 for the blue team gave them their third point. BLOCKO would come back with their pick on Rise 2 and an impressive 991k full combo by Watch01. Speaking of random mods, the red team also decided to add it on Rise 4, the technical pick. On the one map that you should never put random on, BLOCKO managed to get their second point for the 2-4 scoreline, and they would tie the match up at 4-4 after picking Rise 3, which essentially turned into a mirror versus flashlight map. Unfortunately on Hybrid 3, Surfchu would suffer a disconnect in the match, eventually found out to be a power outage, leaving a very wide score gap of 758k for the blue team. Big MAXUS then reached match point at Rise 6, but with it being a totally unscripted match, the red team needed to find a way to reach the tiebreaker. BLOCKO won the rest of the non-tiebreaker picks with Hybrid 1 and Rise 1 with absolutely no 40 scroll speeds on flashlights and fade-ins whatsoever. The match would be forced to tiebreaker. After all these shenanigans, both teams went into serious mode to see who would win, and surely enough, Big MAXUS won the pick by 42,971 points, concluding the match at 6-7. Overall, a very fun match to watch, and shoutouts to Watch01 for pretty much MVPing the entire match, and to all the players that participated in the show match.
Malaysia advanced to the second round of matches this weekend after winning by default against Chile, who wasn't able to appear for this match due to issues regarding their players' availability. The Chileans' campaign unfortunately ended after their best MWC 7K run in recent memory. With this result, we are assured of a Southeast Asian derby match between Indonesia and Malaysia. The losers bracket match with the closest seeding difference this week featured the United States and Peru. The North Americans came to the losers bracket after a 6-1 loss to China, while Peru were looking to keep up their momentum after sweeping Taiwan last weekend. Surprisingly, the match started at early hours for the participating teams. This meant that both teams were missing the presence of key players like Alter and Alter Fangirl for the US and Josiah X Arc for Peru. Due to this, the showdown was touted to be more of a consistency battle for both teams. The United States protected Rise 4 while Peru protected LN1. The bans also went as expected as the Peruvians removed Rise 1 from play and the North Americans banished LN4 out of the pool. The face-off finally started with the North American Protect 6 Acid Strings, where a surprising FC from Suisei gave the audience a shock. That same player continued their performance to help their team secure a point on LN2. Peruvian consistency proved to be evident on Foxglove, as having less misses gave them the upper hand, eventually winning the point and leading the match 3-0. The North Americans finally picked up their first point on LN3, which finished with the closest score gap the entire match, 4,398 points. Hebe was also picked up by Team USA, helped by a massive meltdown from Love on a bracket pattern before disconnecting from the match. The Peruvians were guided back on track after dominating a guiding star by around 130,000 points. Peru obtained the match point on Rise 3, but we'd still like to give Logan a shoutout for their 987,000 MVP effort on the chart. The match ended after Peru dominated their last pick, Phosphor. Team Peru are now one win away from a first-time appearance in the finals weekend of MWC 7K. Team USA, on the other hand, bid another World Cup campaign goodbye, and hopefully they'll be back stronger than ever next year.
With South Korea being a titan of a team for dominating 7K World Cups over the years, and the underdog Japan having one of the best Rise average scores in the tournament so far, this match had everyone thrilled on the outcome. Given that it's a winner's bracket match, the winner gets a guaranteed podium spot for the tournament. Japan opened the match with Rise 3, which is definitely their best decision for a pick, and won it by a close lead of 6,770 points. Additionally, Botanic delivered an unbelievable 999,257 at 36,300 counts. This is a score that you would expect somewhere in the early games of the tournament, but it happened here. South Korea then struck back with a bold choice of Hybrid 3, deemed as the mini tiebreaker of the map pool, tying the match 1-1. Throughout the match, both of the teams stuck to their straightforward Rise vs LN strategy, still advancing in lockstep, but with an emphasis on Japan's victory on Rise 5 at a very close score gap of 1,385 points. Things would stir up when South Korea's pick on Hybrid 1 Foxglove ended up with an upset, as Japan barely took the breakpoint with a 114-point difference, the closest score gap in this tournament as of now. The scoreline at 2-4, an opportunity to land a match point appeared for Japan, hoping to force a tiebreaker against South Korea. This hope would soon dissipate as soon as they picked Rise 4, a very risky pick even for the Japanese side. South Korea won that pick after a slightly rough start by both Rain Lily and Botanic, earning them their breakpoint. The next 3 maps would suffer the same fate, where Hybrid 2, Rise 1, and LN4 ended in South Korea's victory. South Korea is now guaranteed a podium spot, advancing to the winners' finals. Meanwhile, Japan will be relegated to the losers bracket, which may pose a challenge for the surviving teams. The journey for both teams will not end here, and we will have to see how they will perform in their upcoming matches in the finals.
Sunday's second match featured Indonesia, fresh from a 6-1 win against the Russian Federation the previous day, and Malaysia, that was supposed to play against Chile, but player availability issues meant that the Malaysians advanced to the stage by default. Given this, the fact that Malaysia has the advantage of knowing their opponent's scores on 7 charts beforehand was something to note for both teams. The pool setup for this match were as follows: Malaysia protected Rise 3 and Indonesia protected LN4. The Indonesians took Rice 5 out of play and their opponents banned Rice 1. This left most of the LN pool and all of the HB pool open. While this was the case, Malaysia opted to open with Pixel Planet, the only chart that their opponents conceded to Russia previously. Despite this, RAFCO's 988,000 run helped Indonesia secure a breakpoint. Team Indonesia opted to pick the other chord stream pick, Little Star, where Ontabikasi's 991,000 score led the room's leaderboard. LN1 saw two impressive full combos from Nyokje and RAFCO, but again it was Ontabikasi's supporting 974,000 run that made Indonesia score their third point. Another RAFCO MVP run on Rice 3 gave their team point number 4. Gekocho saw a similar story to LN1 in terms of the top and supporting players, which meant that Indonesia now led the match 5-0. The match ended on Enchanted Love thanks to another RAFCO room-topping run helping Indonesia. With this win, Indonesia marked their first finals weekend appearance in MWC 7K for the first time since 2017. Meanwhile, Malaysia will have to do it all over again next year after a well-fought campaign even without their veteran star player this year. The second of our two winners bracket matches gave us another showdown between the two teams that have won MWC 7K aside from South Korea. 2016 World Champions China and 2023 World Champions the Philippines are here to battle for a spot in this World Cup's podium. The expectation for this match was that Team China would be the ones focusing more on the Rice pool, while the Philippines would be building their batting average on the LN pool. Team China opted to protect Rice 5, while the Philippines protected LN 4. Both teams opted to take the technical picks out of play, with Team PH banning Rice 4 and Team China banning Hybrid 2. The first two charts were the protected picks. Turks led the effort on Rice 5 courtesy of their 989,000 score, and it was Odlisan's 980,000 run that helped the Filipinos leave their mark in this match. A surprising breakpoint for Team PH came on the speed chart Umami Blaze, but the lead was undone when China countered with a breakpoint of their own on LN2. China took back the advantage after Little Star, but we'd like to give Odlisan's 992,000 effort a shout. Team China kept up their momentum on the inverse chart, a guiding star, thanks to Satori and Van Wilder's weekend-topping team score. The Chinese secured match point on Pixel Planet thanks to Turk's 993,000 MVP score that also topped the weekend. The Philippines started to mount a comeback thanks to Odlisan leading the charge on Phosphor and a surprising breakpoint on We Are Electric. Unfortunately for the Filipinos, the Chinese had other plans this year and ended the match on Foxglove, with Turk's 987,000 run putting the cherry on top of this match. Team China returns to the MWC 7K podium for the first time since 2022, pending final standings, and will be facing South Korea for an outright grand final spot. The relegated team, the Philippines, will face their Southeast Asian neighbors Indonesia to continue their fight to return to the podium for the third year in a row. Hong Kong started their match versus Germany strong, and they needed it too as their potential match against Peru was scheduled for the very next hour. 82,000 difference on LN4 where BLOCKO's high 200 count and frequent misses were put up against Tanjingsi's high combo consistency. 66,000, the very similar dynamic on Hong Kong's own Protect Rice 2, kindly picked for them by their opponents from Europe, and the dominating 105,000 win on LN1, where BLOCKO's accuracy was just far behind the other three players, and the team from Asia found themselves at a stress-free 3-0 so far. On Germany's pick Rice 5, it was still Hong Kong who were at a 5-digit lead throughout most of the map, but as the end drew near, their misses became more and more frequent and the score gap was down to under 4,000. Tanjingsi and Zek stabilized just in time to win the map by at least 7,000 despite Tsukiya Whiskers topping the lobby and BLOCKO missing cleanly, although frequently as they ended up with the second best ratio. Hong Kong responded with Rice 1, where Germany got off to an early accuracy lead, which they would technically speaking keep until the end. But as soon as BLOCKO's first miss came through, the team from Asia took over the lead and they wouldn't let go of it until the final stretch. With their backs against the wall, Germany picked Rise 6 and they certainly had their chances at extending the match, especially entering the final third of the chart where Tanjingsi suffered a full percentage point of an accuracy drop. At the end of the day, Hong Kong's combo consistency prevailed against a marginally better accuracy and secured the team from Asia the sweep and the 27-minute break before their clash against Peru. Despite the 0-6 score, Germany fought tooth and nail in the second half of the match and showed signs of potential for the future as they equaled their achievement of placing 13th to 16th from all the way in 2014.
The last match for the losers bracket, Hong Kong vs Peru, got interest among the audience given their close seed gap and the fact that both teams had their best run in their respective MWC timelines so far. Hong Kong opened up with Rise 2, their own protect, but the match ended up with an upset as Peru won with a 14,869 point lead. Peru's point streak continued up to 4 points with the chance to reach match point. The tables turned slightly to Hong Kong's side as they won their pick on Rise 5 and a breakpoint on Hybrid 2, tallying the score at 2-4. The audience was very thrilled that a potential comeback could occur, but unfortunately for them, Peru would get their match point on Foxglove with a close 6,758 point lead, forcing the Hong Kongers to play for a tiebreaker if they wanted to advance to the next round. As much as Hong Kong would want to lengthen the match, their fate was sealed in Peru's winning pick of Rise 4 at 2-6. This unfortunately will be the end for Hong Kong, finishing at 7th to 8th place, but their efforts will never be in vain after having their best run in the tournament so far. They will have to work their way with better and more experienced versions of themselves next year. And for the first time since 2019, a South American team advances to finals. With that said, the Peruvians challenging the Japanese will be another interesting match to look out for. We wish the best for both teams and optimistically for no unfortunate circumstances to happen next week.
And that's pretty much all of the latest happenings in this year's Osumania 7K World Cup. At the end of next weekend, we will have determined the tournament's top 3 teams, and we will be sure to give you a scoop on what transpired. But until then, we'll see you next week.